Discovering Alabama is a production of the Alabama Museum of Natural History.
O solitude, if I must with thee dwell, let it not be among the jumbled heap of murky buildings. Climb with me the steep, nature's observatory, whence the dell, its flowery slopes, its river's crystal swell. For solitude sometimes is best society. Conversation enriches the understanding, but solitude is the school of genius.
Albert Einstein said that solitude is painful when one is young, but delightful when one is more mature. Well, as one who delights in quiet moments, I can appreciate Einstein's sentiments.
Yet every day, it seems, the joys of such peaceful moments are harder and harder to find. Fortunately, here in Alabama, that best society, that school of genius, that delight of solitude is still readily available. You just have to know where to look.
Hi, I'm Doug Phillips. If you enjoy what William Wordsworth referred to as the bliss of solitude, you're in luck, because in our state, there's always a trail that'll take you there.
Of course, not everyone out on the trail is seeking solitude. Some come for fellowship. Some come for the exercise. Some for a fleeting glimpse. Some to capture a glimpse. Adventure. Recreation. Meditation. Education. You don't have to have a reason to be out on the trail. Sometimes no reason is the best reason of all.
Alabama has thousands of miles of outdoor trails, and today we're going to visit as many of them as we can. We'll see how trails contribute to the history and heritage of our state. More importantly, we'll see how they contribute to the heritage that we will leave for future generations. So join me as we hit the trail.
This program is about a land unknown to many people, a land that in many ways has maintained its native natural wonders, a place of bountiful backcountry, forests, streams, and wildlife more diverse than can be found in much of the inhabited world. Come along with me as we explore the wild wonders of this land. Come along as we discover Alabama.
Welcome to Discovering Alabama, and welcome along as we head out on the trail. Today we're going to follow this pathway to outdoor intrigue and see where it takes us.
With thousands of outdoor trails running through every county, every city, every corner of the state, there's no problem finding a trail that will take us where we want to go. even if where we want to go is deep into Alabama history. With senses keen, critters like the white-tailed deer move warily, seeking safe passage. In its tracks comes the hunter. Over time, others follow, and with each footfall, what was a critter corridor becomes a passageway for people.
Animals, then people, have traditionally found their way along routes determined by nature, tied to prevailing landforms and terrain. And here in Alabama, the state's varied physiography has been the stage for quite a history of intriguing overland travel.
Almost all roads and trails in Alabama result from the same phenomenon, which is geography. And if you think about the state being penetrated by rivers on every edge and side and right down the middle, the trails had to find places where you could cross the rivers at shoals, at places where you could cut a log down and make a footpath across a creek. And so basically the Indian trails were ways in which they're moving from one place to another, or they're following game, or they're in a process of migration. Those early roads that my ancestors and your ancestors used followed right beside those rivers, crossed at the same place, at the same shoals that the Native Americans crossed. Then if you follow the next pattern, which is the railroads lay right on top of those Indian trails, right beside those rivers, crossing at the same shoals where the roads, the early Federal Road and Natchez Trace crossed. Then if you move to the 20th century and you put the interstate highways, I-65, I-85, I-20, if you put that series of roads on top of that overlay, it's the very same thing, right beside the river, crossing at the shoals. And so in a sense, the transportation patterns are dictated by the geography.
Sometimes the trail follows the river, many times it follows well above the river.
The second trails that were major at that time was following the ridge tops. And the reason they followed those ridge tops, if you look back in the very earliest writings, chestnut trees was the predominant species. This was a climax forest. These huge chestnut trees shaded out these flat plateau tops in the Cumberland Plateau, and it was easy to travel there. So one of the real things that happened was people just took the path of least resistance, and that was along the ridge tops and along the waterways.
Track becomes path, path becomes trail, trail becomes road, road becomes highway.
Perhaps there's some irony in that we now use the highways to take us to the trails. And even more ironical, well, the very word trail has taken on new meaning.
Today, the word trail applies to a range of what you might call non-traditional trails.
Well, I think, the interesting thing about the golf trail in Alabama is the topography, because you can go to great golf places, Palm Springs, California, or Myrtle Beach, or down to Florida, but it all looks the same. And when you take a state that's a little over 400 miles north and south, you can do the mountains of North Alabama or Central Alabama to the flatland, wetlands of Mobile, or the fields, so you have a real fun adventure and you get to see different things. So I think the concept of the trail was just sort of evolved from that into other areas that allowed people to say, okay, I really am into birding, I'm not into golf, or I'm into hunting and I'm not into golf. So why not provide that same sort of opportunity? So that's really how a lot of the trails got started.
Yes, hit the trail has taken on new meaning in our modern world. Here in Alabama, though, so many of us look to the trail as a way out of the world, if only for a moment.
I love the outdoors. I love the woods. I like getting outside with nature and seeing what it can show me, like red birds on a green food plot, or a fox squirrel jumping from tree to tree. It's just wonderful. You're out there and it's just you and nature and God and nobody else. I can meditate and think and just be wowed by everything. That's my time.
How will you have attachment to the land? How will you feel a kinship with the land if you never experience anything other than the standardized version that everybody is exposed to? And I think when you really begin to associate yourself with the woods, you want that solar experience, that peace of and quiet, that communing with nature that takes place when you are alone and have an individual experience that attaches you to the land.
We're blessed in Alabama to have so many beautiful places to go. The troop is never at a loss, whether it's climbing Mount Cheaha, doing the Pinhoti Trail, going down to the coast. There are so many places that they can go in the state that it's just never a problem trying to find an adventure for the boys to discover something new. Being outdoors is just an integral part of the Scout program. It's where the boys learn to work together as teams. It's where they learn leadership. It's where they learn self-reliance. Having a variety of trails and different difficulties is important to us when we plan a trip, because we'll have some boys that are newer that don't have much experience, and we have other boys that are almost eagle and have earned most of their merit badges and know everything back and forth. So we can go out and one group can take one trail, perhaps do a 2-day backpack route, while another group can stay at base camp for a while, learn some scouting skills, and then do a hiking trail that's a little less difficult, less strenuous, and get a feel for what they're trying to do before they buy the backpack and get out there and do the more aggressive things. The trails throughout the state are a great asset to Scouts as well as everybody who wants to get outdoors.
Certainly the trail can offer respite from the hustle and bustle of the modern world, interlude from our busy daily schedule. But let's not forget that other important ingredient. The trail can offer a challenge.
I think trail systems in Alabama are vital. I think trail systems anywhere are vital. Having walking in natural areas accessible to the entire population and to see the outdoors and to experience the outdoors, that's just part of an overall good health program. And I would hate to live somewhere where I couldn't leave my house in a short distance and then go enjoy 3 or 4 hours of walking cross country and being outdoors and getting away from the hustle and bustle that we put up with every day.
In our modern world, we tend to departmentalize. We go to work, we go to school, we go to church, we go to the gym. Out here on the trail, it's all part of the same universe.
All of us are on information overload. And there's research that shows that this idea of multitasking, which we all think of as supposed to be really good, can really be taken too far, and productivity actually diminishes by trying to do too many things at once. Besides the fact that productivity diminishes, it wears our minds out and it wears our bodies out, and you've got to have a way to rejuvenate. It gets hard to find situations where we can be alone, and we are alone, in order to understand better what are our thoughts, what are our feelings, how do we see the world. And ultimately, if you lose that, if you lose touch with who you are, what your values are, what your perspectives are, then it makes it very difficult to relate to others in the world.
Better mental health leads to better physical health. Better physical health leads to better mental health. And you can find that mental and physical well-being out here on the trail.
But if you're looking for a metaphor, I wouldn't compare the trail to a clinic or a hospital. I see Alabama's outdoor trails as sanctuary.
The right to be alone, the most comprehensive of rights, and the right most valued by a civilized man.
As much as I enjoy solitude on the trail, I have to say, I miss my faithful traveling companion.
Old Turkey and I covered just about every trail and every nook and cranny of Alabama. There is a need for human beings to find peace in natural surroundings.
There's studies out there that show that everybody needs downtime. Everybody needs a chance to get away, to allow their minds to reboot, to allow their bodies to re-energize, just to get away from all the stresses. Now, how you choose to do that is up to you. Everybody has different ways of doing it. But the National Forest provides a chance to do that in fresh air. You step into a forest, it's like there's no stress.
The thing about being out in nature that is a common denominator for most people is it very quickly creates a different environment, and an environment that is simpler, is quieter, and it gives you an environment where reflection, rejuvenation, and stress reduction happens almost automatically. In order to better focus, in order to calm down, we have to be in situations that are calming for us. Coming out to a trail gets rid of distractions, gets rid of loud noises, and almost automatically slows the heart rate down, slows the cognitive processing, the mental processing, everything slows down. You see that in children, you see that in adolescents, you see that in adults. I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective in that I'm relatively new to Alabama. I grew up in Southern California, in Los Angeles, where we didn't have access to this around us. I couldn't get in a car and drive 5 minutes, or better yet, step into my backyard. And so I think that for me, it's having children who can do that, who have access to it, not only is it, I think it's a gift, it's extremely important.
That's the thing about Alabama. I'm from the Northeast, and we have mountains up there, and out west you have desert hiking and canyon hiking, but Alabama has a little sample of everything here, and that's what's great about hiking Alabama. You can climb a mountain in the north, or go see some of the most beautiful canyons around, or see the cypress swamps down the south, or do beach hiking in the Gulf. So Alabama has everything, and that's what's really nice about being down here and hiking.
It's funny, I had somebody ask me just recently, why does a man in his late 60s still get out here and roam around these mountains and canoe up and down these rivers? And to me, it seems natural. I grew up that way. My entire career has been that way. It cleanses your soul. It cleanses your heart. It's totally good for you, and I can't recommend it highly enough. And I think the older you get, the more you probably need it.
Track becomes path, path becomes trail, trail becomes road, and road becomes highway. Change happens, and we can expect more changes to come.
Changes hurtling at us at 80 miles per hour down those highways. Fortunately, here in Alabama, those same highways can take us back. Back in time? No. Today's highways are racing relentlessly into the future. They cannot take us back in time.
But hey, along the mad rush into the future, we can certainly benefit by stepping back onto an Alabama outdoor trail. And just maybe, we'll find ourselves on the right path.
I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Discovering Alabama is a production of the Alabama Museum of Natural History, the University of Alabama. This program is supported by grants from the Solon and Martha Dixon Foundation, the Alabama Wildlife Federation, working for wildlife since 1935, the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, State Lands Division, and the F. Allen and Louise K. Turner Foundation.